what they said. You know that place where you have a tough act to follow? Yeah, you guys are beautiful. Thank you. I don't sing that high. Except maybe in the right circumstances where there's a whole lot of pain inflicted or something. But I want to start off with our acknowledging of our Advent wreath, our Advent circle. And the Advent wreath actually predates the Christian tradition, but it comes out of the remembrance of the return of light. You might have noticed it's getting a little dark. I'm talking about the physical light in the world, okay? Not the political or any other comment. That just, you know, the sun is shining a little bit less right now. And so we take this time to remember, however, that there's a return to the light. And so Advent is this wonderful preparation as we prepare for the light. Every mystic, everyone who had a direct experience of the divine, took some preparation time, took some time out. Jesus went into the desert for 40 days. Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree for 90 days. And when we celebrate Bodhi Day this coming week on the 8th, the enlightenment of the Buddha. Muhammad, whose birthday is coming up in next week or the week after, went off into the cave over and over again. Mystics, prophets from the Old Testament went out into the desert. And so everyone who's ever had that experience, Arjuna sits in the middle of a battlefield and has a time out with Krishna, to have this experience. Every one of us takes this time out to have this mystical awareness and this mystical remembrance. So Advent is an invitation. It's an invitation to take the time to prepare ourselves to receive this light that's already present, already here, but looking to be birthed through us. And so last week, we did the Advent candle that represents hope. It represents the remembrance and the reflection, on the fact that there is light and that it is coming back. It's that hope for light. And so we started that off. This week, as we move around the wreath, we light the candle that symbolizes love. Because as we remember that light returning, there's a sense of love that we feel and that we experience. And we remember the true love that lives within us, and we share that love out with every other person. And so I think it's perfect that we're sharing our love with these beautiful teddy bears today and these beautiful children who will receive these teddy bears today. And I thank you for your consciousness in doing that and for your heart in doing that. So we begin Advent that way. Our talk title today is on the living spirit. The living spirit. Now, God is not a God of the dead, as Jesus once said. God is the living spirit. And this comes from the Ernest Holmes, the very first statement in What We Believe. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty. See, God is not something that kind of created the world and sent it off into motion and then, head on off to the Caribbean to have a vacation, or wherever God's Caribbean version is. It's not a God that sits up on a throne somewhere and watches to see how we're doing. God is the life energy that is fully active in, through, and as you and I right here and right now. Mechthild of Magdeburg, I'm so glad I found her. Damien and I have been having fun with that, all morning with saying that. I've asked him to say it 5 times real fast, and he won't take that on. I won't either. But she says, the day of my spiritual awakening was the day I saw and knew I saw all things in God and God in all things. All things in God. And God in all things. Take a breath with me. That's our challenge, isn't it? That's our journey. Can I see God in all things? And can I see that all things are in God? So that's our invitation. That's our invitation today. That's our invitation every single day of our lives, is to truly see God in all and all in God. That's our only work. See, God is alive, right? God is alive. They talk about how God is our breath within our breath, that's closer than our neck vein. Today, with our awareness of quantum physics, we might say that God is that infinite potential energy that is everywhere and always present. God is the infinite potential within you and I, and with everything. God is alive. It's that energy, it's that vibrating awareness, that vibrating life. Kabir, who was an Indian poet from the 15th century who began his life as a Muslim, an Indian Muslim, and eventually became very influenced by the Hindu tradition. He's honored in Sufism, he's honored in Islam, he's honored in Hindu. He said in his ecstatic poetry, he said, "O servant, where do you seek me?" This is the capital M, me. "Where do you seek me? Lo, I am beside you. I am neither in temple nor in mosque. I am neither in Kaaba nor in Kailash. Neither am I in rites or ceremonies, nor in yoga or renunciation. If you are a true seeker, you shall at once see me, and you shall meet me in a moment of time. I am the breath of all breath." Take a breath with me and recognize that that breath is the breath of God. It's breathing you and me. That breath is the breath of God. And you are God breathing that breath of God. When he talks about Kaaba, Kaaba is the sacred black stone that sits within the cube in Mecca where the Muslims make their pilgrimage to. Once in their life, they're called by their religion to make what they call the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, and circumambulate that cube. I believe it's 7 times. And he's saying it's not there. Kailash. Kailash is the sacred mountain where Lord Shiva supposedly lives in the Hindu tradition. It's on the Indian-Tibetan border. And if you can, as a Hindu, you want to make a pilgrimage, although it's much harder because it's quite high elevation and quite remote, to that particular mountain. And supposedly that's where Shiva lives. And to circumambulate that mountain, which usually takes 3 days. Aren't you glad you're a religious scientist? But he says it's neither there, it's not in those places, it's not in those sacred places, it's not in the mosque or the temple, nor is it in rites and ceremonies or processes like yoga or renunciation. It's not any more in those than it is anywhere else. We might use those places, we might experience the divine in those places more, we might experience the divine by doing these processes a little bit more, but it's not there more than anywhere else or somewhere else less than anywhere else. It's right here. And by here, I just mean wherever the here is that you are. It's right here. God is breathing as you and I. So all spiritual teachers tell us some variation of seek ye first the kingdom of God and its righteousness. Seek first that kingdom. Seek God first. And when Jesus said it's righteousness, it's not that, in that kind of, well, I'm so righteous. It's not that kind of way. But it's that the manner of the divine, the flow of the nature of spirit. Seek first God in its own nature. Okay? Since God is living within and as us, that's what we're here to do. Ernest Holmes calls it first cause. We talk about the law. And the law is the law of cause and effect. And first cause is that place out of which everything else flows. And so seek ye first. If you want to shift something in your life, seek first the kingdom of God within and its ways. And its ways are what? Its ways are love and light and joy and intelligence and beauty. Okay? So we seek first that. And then we listen to become more aware of that first cause in its nature and what wants to express through me. See, Spirit is always wanting to express something more and more through each of us, right? And so we simply sit and listen. Do we take the time to listen? Our thoughts activate this source. So here's this infinite potential, as a scientist would say, this energy that is living in potential. And it responds to what Ernest calls it the impress of our thoughts. So if you think of Play-Doh, when you put your hand into the Play-Doh and pull it back out, you're going to leave an impression of your hand, right? That's the impress. And so our thoughts form this substance into the forms that correspond to our thoughts. This is why my favorite question always is, if something's not working well in my life, so what exactly did I ask the universe to say yes to? Because it's always saying yes. Okay? What's the impression that I put in? And sometimes that's a challenge to ask, isn't it? It is for me. So if we're acting in response to our effects, then we're acting in response to that which is we've already created a form into that, and then we're trying to adjust the form based on the form, which is rather, I was trying to think of a metaphor. I tried to use a fun house earlier, but it's where everything keeps kind of feeding back on itself, and the more you put into it, the more feedback it does on itself, until we finally come to silence and we come to center. We finally come to center. And that's the invitation. And those effects can be noisy, right? They can look really real. I was reminded of Disney's, at Disneyland, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. And there's places in that ride where how many people have been on that ride? You kind of know a little bit what I'm talking about. Okay, many of you have. And so you're going through, it's kind of dark, there's some scary stuff, and dead men, tail, no tails, going through it, on that and stuff like that. And there's a couple of times that you're approaching it and it looks like there's somebody or something right in front of you. And it's kind of scary, and all of a sudden you go and go through it, and you realize it's just a projection onto this vapor. Projection onto this vapor. And our effects are just that. They're projection onto the vapor of life, the screen of life. Okay? So despite their appearance of reality, they have no power. They have no real reality. Unless, of course, we invest our power in them and believe in them, and then we empower them through ourselves and say, this is real, and I'm scared of it, or I'm angry about it, or I'm hurt by it. And we empower them. And we let them scare us. So the way out is always to turn to first cause, that first cause. Emmett Fox, who was a wonderful early New Thought writer from New York, said in his essay, The Golden Key, he said, whatever your problem, think of God instead. Whatever your problem, think of God instead. Mary last week, I believe, talked about what we put our attention on is what increases in our lives. And so if we put our attention on the divine, if we put our attention on love, if we put our attention on life, if we put our attention on intelligence, if we put our attention on beauty, instead of this, that's what increases in our lives. Now, sometimes I like to get ahead of the curve by thinking of spirit first before the effects show up. But when I find myself in that feedback loop of effects, it's like I have to remember to take time to step back and say, whoa, time out, David. Let's get back to God. Let's get back to God. So we're going to take some time this morning to actually practice that, to actually take a little bit of time out, like the mystics who wander in the desert or sit under a Bodhi tree or go into the cave. We're going to take a little bit of time this morning to actually remember this divine, to actually turn our attention to that living spirit within us, okay? And so we're going to start this off with a process. We're going to simply Om. Om is the most ancient word for God. And it's not that we've all become suddenly Hindus, but it's just a wonderful centering chant that almost all of us are aware of and have done at some point in our life, or know of somebody who's done it at some point in our life, or we've heard it somewhere. And so we're going to play with that practice of going into the Om, and then allowing it to move into the silence as it naturally does, and then simply sit in that silence for a few minutes. And so I'm going to start us off with the Om. I will end it by ringing this bowl, which will sound like that, and we'll come back out of that meditation. But we're going to take several minutes of doing this, probably a good 5 or 6 minutes of being in this place. And so I invite you to, if you're willing to get comfortable, to take that bear, love on it, and let your Om be the bear's Om, and to join me as you feel called. very gently, as you feel called, allow yourself to be fully present here. Gently open your eyes. Each creature God made must live in its own true nature. How could I resist my nature that lives for oneness with God? And so this week I invite you, as a spiritual practice, just one thing. Take time out to remember your oneness with God. Take time out to just remember the truth of who you are. That might look like a few extra minutes in meditation, or meditation at all for some who are new to this. It might be taking the silent retreat. It might be whatever it is that it calls to you to do. But this week, take some time in the season of busyness where the effects can be so loud to remember that. I want to close with a quote from our favorite Mechthild here. I, who am divine, am truly in you. I can never be sundered from you. However far we be parted, never can we be separated. I am in you, and you are in me. We could not be any closer. We two are fused into one, poured into a single mold. Thus unwearied, we shall remain forever. You and I, the infinite presence, are one forever. And that's the good news. So let's move into prayer. And there is only one. There's only one. One life. One light that is the light within all of us. All of the universe. One intelligence. One power. One that is the beauty of this universe. Only one. As the psalmist once said, if I soar to the heavens, there you are. If I descend into the depths of hell, there you are. Wherever we are, everywhere, this infinite presence, this one, this spirit, by all the names we've ever given it, it is. It is. And because it is everywhere present, I, each of us, the I that is each of us, the I that is the one eye looking into the universe, I am one of that. That and I are one. I am the love. Not I have the love within me, I am the love. Not that I have the light within me, I am the light. Not that I have the power within me, I am the power. Always on. I am the intelligence. I am the beauty. This is my truth here and now. And so I speak my word that this week, this moment, is that moment where we truly see God in all and all in God, where we truly recognize how true that is of ourselves and of everything and everyone around us, more fully than ever before. That this light is constantly renewing within us, constantly birthing and being born anew in new ways within us, and we say yes. We say yes to this light. We say yes to this love. We say yes to the infinite presence that each of us is. And knowing the beauty that comes forth out of this process, I am simply grateful. I stand in awe and in gratitude of this spirit And of each of us as one with this and one of this Spirit. Perfect eyes, perfect expressions, perfect breaths of this Spirit. I know that blesses each of us individually, and it blesses this world. And so I release this word spoken into a law that carries its impress and moves it into form and expression in each one of our lives here and now. And it does. And we do. And so it is. Thank you.